Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. We're here today to learn the details of some incredible police work involving a series of violent crimes in our city and in the areas of King County. What you're about to hear about from Chief Rohr and others are examples of, quite honestly, just outstanding police work by our officers and our county partners. This was a multi-jurisdictional effort. The results are going to have a meaningful impact on the safety of our residents in Seattle and around the Seattle surrounding areas. For this, we are thankful for all the excellent work that our officers do to serve our city every single day. I wanted to personally express my personal gratitude. So, Chief Rohr, I'm incredibly proud of our officers, and I deeply appreciate their good work and your leadership. And with that, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone, thanks for being here today. I'm going to do some opening comments. The reason we're gathered today is we want to talk about a terrifying crime spree that was brought to an end yesterday. And this is a story about a high-risk arrest where there were automatic weapons with extended magazines, extremely dangerous people, and the arrest took place and was completed with no gunfire, no injuries, because of the extraordinary work of the team that worked together to bring these suspects into custody. I also want you to be thinking about, as we're telling the story about what happened, the fact that this case involved mostly juveniles. And I think it's important that the juvenile justice system recognizes that juveniles have poor decision-making, but that doesn't make them any less dangerous. And so we still have to deal with the fallout when kids with poor decision-making skills are highly armed and they're literally out of control. Next, I want to introduce Chief Tom Mahaffey. He's going to give you an overview of this series of cases, 78 cases that were all linked together. Chief Mahaffey.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. Yeah. Beginning in early September, a troubling wave of armed robberies, carjackings, and shootings emerged in Seattle and the King County region. A group of armed juveniles has been identified as responsible for at least 78, and that's 78 documented crimes, including 22 in the city of Seattle alone. Now, these individuals primarily targeted convenience stores, gas stations, and quick service restaurants. Their MO involved arriving in stolen vehicles and brandishing firearms while demanding cash, merchandise, and personal items from the employees of those businesses that they were targeting. Today, I'm pleased to report significant progress in this ongoing investigation. The Seattle Police Department's robbery unit, in collaboration with the Gun Violence Reduction Unit, Community Response Group, South Precinct officers, the Federal Way Police Department, Washington State Patrol, and the King County Sheriff's Department conducted a coordinated surveillance operation yesterday. Less than 1 hour before our operation began, a carjacking in Bellevue occurred. Our detectives then observed the suspects driving that carjacked vehicle into an apartment parking lot and maintained surveillance on that vehicle. When the suspects returned to that vehicle, they ran over a device that was designed to deflate the tire. They then drove off, and at some point they pulled over to address that deflated tire, at which point the Seattle Police Department SWAT team moved in to effect an arrest. As they were trying to make that arrest, the subjects fled. There was a brief foot pursuit, but eventually all four were apprehended. That includes 3 juveniles and 1 adult male. During the course of the arrests, 2 firearms have been recovered. One is still in plain view inside the carjacked vehicle, and we'll be recovering that. And another was found near one of the suspects by them after they were taken into custody after foot pursuit. And notably, the weapon inside the vehicle matches the description of the weapon used in several of the robberies that we're investigating. So this investigation is ongoing. Detectives are currently awaiting the results of latent print analysis and going through quite a significant amount of evidence that has been recovered during the course of this investigation. I just want to extend my personal gratitude to all of the law enforcement agencies that were involved in this operation yesterday, and particularly to the SPD robbery detectives who spent a lot of long hours and put a lot of hard work in investigating these cases. And so I'll turn it over to Casey now from the prosecutor's office.
Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Casey McNerthy, and I'm here on behalf of Lisa Mannion, the King County prosecutor, who would be here, but she's returning from Utah, where she was at a conference of county prosecutors and district attorneys. Right now, across the street, the 18-year-old who was arrested is in court, and what King County prosecutors are asking for is for him to be held on $200,000 bail. We're arguing about the danger to the community. Also, at 1:30, up at the Clark Child and Family Justice Center, there were first appearance hearings for the two juveniles who were in court this afternoon, one on a warrant on a previous case for violating terms of court-ordered conditions, the other on this investigation. What we anticipate to happen next is on Tuesday, before Tuesday morning, we anticipate getting additional cases from Seattle Police investigators or the King County Sheriff's Office. Cases that are in King County's jurisdiction will come to the King County Prosecutor's Office. We can make charging decisions on the cases that come to us. I want to be clear on behalf of the King County Prosecutor's Office. There needs to be clear accountability here, as we would have in any juvenile case. Armed robbery cases are very serious. They're important. It's important for the community that we have clear accountability, and we will. It's also important to note that armed robbery cases are not diversion cases in King County. If you don't see 78 charges initially on Tuesday, that's because it's an ongoing investigation. What King County prosecutors can do is take the cases that come to us and make charging decisions on those, and then as the active investigation continues, make additional charging decisions. In large-scale investigations like this, it's not uncommon to see a few charges initially referred and then later cases coming to us as the investigation goes on. But I want to reassure the public on behalf of the King County Prosecutor's Office that we are taking these cases seriously, as we do with any juvenile case, and we anticipate clear accountability for these alleged crimes.
So just a couple of comments to wrap up, and then we'll take questions. I wanted to underscore how grateful we are to the King County Sheriff's Office, me personally too, but we could not have executed this arrest without the assistance of Guardian 1, and Smokey, the WSP fixed wing airplane, also helped when the helicopter had to refuel. But this case, we would not have been able to make this arrest without the assistance of the Sheriff's Office, and we deeply appreciate that they're always there and ready to help us in cases like this. I also want to point out something that didn't happen. We talk about the great work of our detectives. I also want to talk about the great work of our SWAT team. Because of what they didn't do. They didn't shoot anybody. They didn't overreact. They were very careful and methodical in executing that arrest. And again, these were extremely dangerous individuals that were peacefully arrested with no injuries. I've asked our robbery unit sergeant and some of the detectives that were deeply involved in this case to make themselves available now to answer any questions that you have. Thanks. Come on up, Sean. Sergeant Sean Whicker.
Does anyone have any questions about the case?
So basically, what we've learned is that you had identified the suspects and kind of waited for them to make their move, but in the meantime had put like the, whatever the strip was to flatten the tires in there without anyone seeing you?
Yeah, so correct. We had surveillance operations. We had information of a place where they may be located in Federal Way. We mobilized units from our robbery unit as well as our gun violence reduction unit, and we set up stationary surveillance. Once we observed that stolen vehicle come from Bellevue, we observed it go into an apartment, at which point we notified our SWAT team and had them come down. While we were doing that, they came back out, and we started to follow them around Federal Way. Thank you to Guardian 1. Without them, we would have lost them. They were driving extremely recklessly. They were running red lights. They had no clue we were there because we were all in unmarked undercover cars. So without Guardian 1, there's no doubt we would have lost sight of these individuals. After driving around for a while, they went back to the location, went back in the unit, at which point we deployed a spike strip, essentially, underneath the tire. And then as SWAT was moving in, before they could get there, they got in the car, drove over the spike strip, and drove away. Fortunately, that deflated the tire, and then they were on the side of the road attempting to change the tire, at which point our SWAT team was able to move in and effectively take them into custody.
Can you give us a little clearer picture of the timeline? You know, when active surveillance to when they ended up in handcuffs?
So for yesterday's timeline, we got information at about 2:30 around that time of where they might be, and we had all bodies activate from that point on.
But was it really just like a coincidence that they happened to hit a convenience store while you were surveilling them?
No, it was not I mean, that they hit that, yes, but we had intel of where they might be, so we were already setting up, and then we learned the information about the carjacking in Bellevue. And so we were just being on the lookout for that vehicle as it matched the description of our robbery suspects.
And was law enforcement aware of this group? You know, like how, if you can potentially tie them to 78, how long in that process before law enforcement started tracking them? I mean, was that after 3 or 4 robberies, 10 or 20? You know, like.
So we had been investigating them since September. Finding their whereabouts was a difficult task. Through investigative means, yesterday we were finally able to get a place where we knew that they may be. So yesterday was the first day where we had concrete information on where they might be.
Brian, can you describe some of these carjackings and armed robberies? Describe the behavior of these suspects.
Yeah, so essentially these suspects were coming into stores in mostly a stolen Kia or Hyundai. They were going in with 3 people. They were propping the door open with some kind of object. They were going to the clerk armed with handguns, and they were jumping over the counter. Oftentimes they were pointing the gun right at the clerk's face, demanding they empty the safe and take out the cash register. There were some situations where some of the 7-Elevens were aware of these robberies that were occurring, so they were locking the doors and allowing one person in at a time. In one instance in West Seattle, the clerk refused to let someone in, and one of our suspects grabbed a bushel of wood that was outside and started to pound on the door to try and get in. When that was ineffective, the suspect pulled out a firearm and fired in an automatic mode into the store. Fortunately, the clerk was not hurt. So these.
Do we have that on video?
We do have that on surveillance video, yes. And as far as the progression of it goes, as the longer these went on, the more aggression we saw from these suspects. They started with just pointing firearms, and then as it led to shots fired.
So in what you're describing right now, so often we hear that crimes of opportunity. In this case, the opportunity seemed to have been taken away from them, and they were not deterred by that at all. So can you speak to the violence and things that it could eventually escalate to?
So I sure can. What I'd like to do is bring up Detective Thomas. He's the case detective on this, and he can answer those questions as well.
Hello. Just to further on to that point, we became aware of this group in early September. We noticed escalating trends in their behavior. Initially, they would wait for or look for an empty 7-Eleven or other convenience store where there was just the clerk, and they would go in using that similar MO of backing their car up to the entrance, going in and pointing guns at the clerk's face and getting the till and trying to get into the safe. But as September progressed, later in September, they would find convenience stores that had multiple people in them and then hold everyone in the store at gunpoint, demanding purses, wallets, and phones from everyone inside, and also getting into the till of the 7-Eleven. So we were just concerned about the escalating trends of violence and wanted to be able to interdict that before a more serious, grievous injury or result occurred.
What injuries occurred in any of these crimes that you're aware of?
In one of these strong-arm robberies, one of the clerks was kicked in the head. For the most part, the shots fired or guns pointing in their face obviously caused significant mental anguish, but no physical injuries occurred for most of the robberies.
Can we get a breakdown of people in custody, ages, charges, how many people you think you have?
We currently have 4 people in custody, 1 adult and 3 juveniles.
And this is still an active investigation?
It's an ongoing investigation, so we...
Kids, like 12? Because the one adult's 18,
Still an active investigation.
It's an active investigation, so we can release more details of that at a later time.
all male? How do they know each other?
That's still an active investigation, and we'll determine the level of which they were either co-conspirators or knew each other.
Do you anticipate more arrests?
That's still an active investigation at this point.
And they are all guys, like you said?
Yes, all males.
So talk about the carjacking that started this kind of in for you guys, about the carjacking itself.
Yes, Bellevue Police Department will have the lead on that, as it occurred in their jurisdiction, but from what I'm aware of, it was multiple males armed with handguns that took the vehicle at gunpoint.
And that's why you guys are surveilling them that happened?
We became aware of that carjacking, and since it matched the MO of the previous carjackings associated with this group, we put our surveillance assets in motion to try to get eyes on them.
Got it. You weren't watching them commit a crime like last night.
No, officers did not witness that carjacking.
They had clock switches on their guns too?
In some of the robberies, there were automatic fire sear switches and extended magazines on the handguns.
And Seattle had several carjackings as well, correct? And you were
Yes,
watching
ma'am.
them for those.
Can we get a big picture sense of what message you hope this sends?
The message I hope this sends is that armed robberies are extremely dangerous. They're extremely damaging to the victims and for anyone working, especially overnight in a convenience store. And we would like to know, the public to know, and specifically people that are working or out late at night, that the Seattle Police Department takes this seriously, and we will investigate and try to bring charges to anyone that would use force, fear, or intimidation to take someone's property.
Sergeant Whicker, could you talk about the conversation you had with the one suspect who was expecting to be released?
Yes, so last night I was engaging with one of the suspects, our primary suspect in this, and the conversation led to him basically stating, can I get booked into jail because I'd like to be let out tomorrow? Took me off a little bit, and I said, you are not getting out tomorrow. And he says, if I get booked into jail today, they will let me out tomorrow. I let him know that this was not going to be the case, but it is in their mind that upon getting booked into jail, they will be released the next day. So this is something that we're finding with multiple juveniles, not just this individual. So it's something that is out in the public, that they believe that it is an in and out stop.
Is the primary suspect the 18-year-old?
It is an active investigation. I'm not going to give that information right now.
In a case like this, is there a ringleader? Is this any way gang related? I mean, how are these young people learning and doing the things that they're doing at that age?
So the ringleader in this does claim affiliation to a gang. How they're learning this, I'm not quite sure yet. So we have a lot to uncover. There's a lot of evidence we still need to go through. There are still a ton of leads that we need to go to, and we still have to work with our other agency partnerships to collaborate and gather more information. There will be a lot more information that comes from this, but it's still going to take time. We're in the early stages of this investigation right now.
Casey, did you want to add something to that?
Sure. You know, on that note, it's important to address that statement that they will release me. We want the public to see what King County prosecutors are doing. Routinely in armed robbery cases and other serious violent crimes and other property crimes, King County prosecutors are going into court and arguing the danger to the community. And we're routinely asking for people, when they're violent and a threat to the community, to be held. Ultimately, what has to happen is a judge weighs both sides of it, weighs what prosecutors bring from police and the arguments that prosecutors make, and also hear from defense and then make a judgment there. So it's the court's decision based on the information available, but routinely, when possible, King County prosecutors argue that people involved in armed robberies and serious violent crimes and other property crimes be held in custody when it's appropriate.
All right, we got time for 2 or 3 more. All right, Chief, can I ask you guys a quick question? So
Yeah.
for the people that are watching us and they don't know what you guys are doing or like all the kind of ins and outs, you're sitting there, you're going to hear us say these kids committed 80-ish crimes in about a month. So they had a long time to do this. And one of them is so brazen to be like, book me so I can get out.
That's right.
How do we get to that point? And then like, what can we tell our viewers that like is happening to like change what is some sort of understanding from these criminals?
Well, I think we need to make an adjustment in our perspective. I think for too long we have been living in the world of either you treat them like children or you treat them like violent criminals. They are both. And the criminal justice system appropriately recognizes that there are differences, cognitive differences in juveniles. That doesn't diminish how dangerous their guns are. And so what we want the public to be aware of is just because you hear that a juvenile committed a crime, this is not like a kid playing cops and robbers. These kids are very, very dangerous, and our system has to figure out a way, or we have to figure out a way, for our system to properly balance the cognitive abilities of a juvenile against the dangers that they're presenting. In some ways, in my experience, they're more dangerous because they're more impulsive, they're more unpredictable. And I could not be more proud of our officers for being able to put these cases together and figure out where these kids are. This is not easy to do. And now our big hope is they stay in custody long enough that we can finish putting the rest of the investigations together. These kids are dangerous. Just because they're kids doesn't mean they're not dangerous.
I have a question for our viewers, and especially maybe one of the detectives might answer this based on just general evidence that you've collected in all of these cases, and that is, convenience stores are open all night. We have so many shift workers. They're going about their normal business. They're not thinking, I'm going to get carjacked. So what should people who maybe are these shift workers and doing things based on your base of knowledge that you have from these cases so far, what can you tell those people as they're going about their daily lives right now, because they're scared?
So one thing I can say that was effective in West Seattle is, unfortunately, some of the clerks are having to lock their doors, and they're having to let every single customer in one at a time. That way they're able to get eyes on the subjects, so that way they're able to see who they are. If you're coming in with 3 individuals fully masked up, they're probably not going to let you in. Unfortunately, it's the world we're in, and we're doing our best as the Seattle Police Department to make everyone accountable. But I would say video surveillance is essential for us. This will help us make or break a case. So that's all I can really add to that one.
All right, thank you, everybody.